Hi, I'm back. In this part of the tutorial, I would like to discuss how to deal with that ghosting effect that occurs from the left eye and the right eye. This is generally caused by imprecisely matching the object borders with the depth map and the underlying 2D image. And this causes bad ghosting effect and visual discomfort for the viewers. Um, there are several parameters in the stereo generator that may help to solve the ghosting problem. Their usage depends on the scene type and depth map problems. However, usually the SDMD as the Smart Depth Map Dilation mode is commonly referred to, which is located right down here at the bottom of the settings box. Um, the SDMD mode usually covers the majority of typical ghosting problems. When it is enabled, the algorithm analyzes edges and performs adaptive correction of the depth map, making these edges more consistent with the object edges and the underlying source 2D image. First, let me just show you. We have our girl here sitting on, a very smooth texture background, and she's basically kind of a cutout within this image area. Yes, this is one of the more simpler kind of situations you're going to be in. However, it's not to say that this doesn't even work in more complex scenarios. Let me just show you between the left and the right eye the situation we have. Our right eye, we can see right off the bat that there's some stretching going on in the hair and on the shoulders, and we need to get rid of that. In this scenario, the SDMD is beautiful in how it controls it, and the effect is that quick, and it's all done within the stereo generator. While you will go in and refine your depth map before you get to this point with these other tools that YUVsoft has. However, this is your final out to be able to correct any problems that were not caught or seemed to be something that was unable to be corrected further before the pipeline. This is a beautiful resource for fixing those edges. As I mentioned, in most scenarios, the SDMD can correct this with just a click, but there are situations where SDMD, while it's the most important of the advanced options, it's not a universal remedy. There are some cases when this mode can't help. In some cases, the SDMD cannot be used for like the whole frame, but it can be applied locally, to parts of the scene to improve picture quality in certain places. I mean, you can actually concatenate these stereo generators and do a patch composition to areas that you need to refine where that ghosting is without affecting the overall image. However, that's something I would like to save for further tutorials, more advanced tutorials, and we'll be doing those after we're done with these. So let's just get back to discussing what these do. So you have great control just with this SDMD alone, but when you need to further control it and see what's going on between the differences of the left eye and the right eye, you have the show edge mask option. And here you would go up to the viewer, you put it into mask, and you'll see the edge mask between the separated views. Depth edge sensitivity, that basically will increase or decrease the amount. And without changing anything other than its wideness, but it won't soften, it won't harden the edges in any way. Then you have your depth edge threshold, which does more of a kind of clamping, gets rid of external artifacts around and focuses mainly on the edges of the full mask. And then you'll have your source edge sensitivity. See, this is very strong, and most of the time you don't go below, above 6 on this. The source edge sensitivity really helps you soften the edges, or go back to your previous setting. But it's about softening the edges and getting them kind of in line and fine tuned. This edge mask denoising strength does exactly what it says. It will denoise your mask, get rid of all those extraneous artifacts that you do not help. So that's basically all I wanted to explain about the Smart Depth Map Dilation option and ghosting. For the next part, I'd like to talk about how you can use the Smart Depth Map Dilation option with the Depth Map Preprocessing to further correct your edges, and get a more refined stereo views. Let me get set up for that, and I'll be right back. I just wanted to add as well, when you're using Stereo Generator and you're trying to deal with your ghosting effect and your object mismatches, for the whole frame, if there are object mask mismatches, which are caused by, mainly by too narrow masks, or there's a blurred or simple non-textured background, this is the primary or the perfect scenario to use the SDMD for the entire scene. However, when you have a highly textured background or object masks are uniformly wider than the respective objects in the source image, it's not so advisable to be using the SDMD alone. Bad places when your object edge sits on top of a textured surface, that can cause difficulties as well. But there are other methods for creating and for correcting your depth map and getting it to a final state. And that's either before or during the stereo generator. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about some of these other options, such as depth map preprocessing, in the next tutorial, or part 3 of this tutorial, actually. So I just wanted to mention that about, there are scenarios where, this isn't a fix-all solution, and you have to come up with a new method. And another method that you can do is with the stereo generators, you can actually link these together, if I haven't already mentioned this, and kind of do a patch composite on your image and use the SDMD for only those parts that need to be affected. I believe you can link up to 7, but it's a hardware limitation and not a software limitation at all. So let me set up for the third and final part of our tutorial, and I'll be right back. Hi, I'm back. In this part of the tutorial, I would like to discuss further the SDMD, and along with the dilate depth map options applied together. First, you do what you can with the SDMD. You try and get your best results, and then when you need to further it along, you're going to activate the depth map preprocessing, which is the dilate depth map, or the DDM. They work in conjunction with each other. First you work with the SDMD, and then you work with the DDM. The DDM provides horizontal X or vertical Y depth map dilation for objects, all objects. All masks in the depth map, all boundaries will be enlarged by that number of pixels that will be set as a value of DDM X or Y. The DDM is a static routine, so it does not analyze the underlying 2D image. It's global. Whereas the SDMD is an adaptive routine. It finds actual edges in the source 2D image. It also analyzes the depth map, depth props, edge sharpness, and then it tries to understand where it is necessary to do the local dilation. Only those boundaries will be dilated that are marked in the edge mask with white or red, as I showed you in the earlier tutorial, where you show edge mask and you come into, you show the edge mask, come in here, bring it to mask, and we see we have this edge mask, which you can also export out, as I mentioned, and use any image editor to fix. But let's get back to the DDM and the SDMD. So in this tutorial, I already have some values set up for our shot. We have 2 side-by-side stereo generators. I just want to, but let me further along on what I was talking about, boundaries and stuff, and what happens with the SDMD, because all the other boundaries will stay untouched with the SDMD, as opposed to the DDM that modifies all boundaries in the depth map. If you specify too big of values for the DDM, usually above 2, but obviously it all depends on the content in the depth map. Visible glass domes will appear because noticeable parts of the background are glued to the 2 objects. Y-axis dilation usually needs only 1 or 0. Big values for X and Y are possible only for very simple uniform one-color backgrounds, e.g. the sky, whereas the SDMD works adaptively where needed, so it can do dilation for more than 2 pixels on its own. And I want to also point out that this is one of those scenarios where I can use bigger values for the DDM because of the background. The SDMD is used in the first place before trying the DDM because usually we have problems on certain boundaries, but not in the whole frame. So firstly, it's better to try and enlarge only a few edges. If it does not work sufficiently well, we can try the DDM. It's a cruder tool that has more chances of provide glass dome artifacting, but more effective in cases of big mismatches in depth. So I've set up this side-by-side comp here with this stereo generator has the SDMD and the DDM applied, and the right stereo generator just has the SDMD applied. Parallax 0 levels, it's just we chose these for this exercise, and these work best for what we're doing. So let me just show you in the viewer. I have this. These are all zeroed out. Depth map, DDM, and the SDMD have these values that I chose. It fixed and worked well with the shot that I have here. We can see here with the SDMD alone that let me just make sure my next one is set up. I'll have okay. So we're looking at the SDMD alone, and we can see that we still have some stretching going on here all the way through here. Left, right, left, right. No SDMD on, SDMD on. Now let's take a look at the other one that has the stereo generator with the depth map preprocessing applied. I have values of 1 and 2 here, and we already get a noticeable difference between the two. That's just SDMD applied, and this is SDMD with DDM applied. Here's the left and the right. I might just want to apply, let's say, a smooth depth map. Now, remember, this smooths the depth map overall, but for this instance, I would like to show you how it can help. So it kind of smoothed it out in the left eye. So that's what we have for the left eye, for the right eye on both views. 1, SDMD and DDM. 2, just SDMD. So, I mean, this is a very powerful tool, this stereo generator alone. I mean, not to mention everything else that goes along here for creating your depth maps and refining your depth maps and upscaling depth maps if you decide to work in a proxy mode originally, or you're working with smaller frame sizes and then you decide to up-res at the end. You know, depth smoothing, depth refinement, but all these we're going to talk about in later tutorials. We're going to bounce along and we're going to cover this entire tool set until everybody understands and knows how to use this, because this is one of the greatest conversion tool sets that I've worked with, especially for the fact that it works inside of Nuke or After Effects if you choose. And I've worked at many of the conversion houses here, and they have nothing like this. And the ease of work and the ease of use is just amazing. So that's it for the stereo generator tutorial. We will get into more depth, into more detail about some of the other advanced options. But for right now, we just wanted to kind of give you a general idea of how to use this and get started with your imagery. Stay tuned for some more advanced tutorials on all the tool sets that I mentioned before. And thank you very much. This is Joaquin Pesher for YUVsoft's 2D to 3D conversion plugin suite for Nuke.